Hi everyone, welcome to the Monkey Patching Podcast, where we go bananas about all things country songs, brain rot, and more. My name is Murillo. I'm joined, as always, by my friend Bart. Hi Bart.
Hey Brille.
How are you?
I'm doing very fine.
Very
Sitting
fine.
inside while the rain just stopped actually.
Yeah, the rain stopped. I think the day is a bit less gray, so it's nice.
Yeah.
But I'm always amazed when the daylight saving stops, that it just looks like it's dark all the whole day. So we'll live. We have a lot of stuff today.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it.
An AI-generated country song is stopping bananas. An AI-generated country song is topping a Billboard chart, stoking a fresh debate over authenticity and how charts treat synthetic artists. Walk My Way by Breaking Rust hit number 1 on country digital song sales, raising questions about disclosure, bot-inflated metrics, and where Billboard draws the line.
Is it a Walk My Way or Walk My Walk?
It is indeed Walk My Walk.
All right. It's fine. We can keep that in.
Did you listen to it? We should be able to. We hear it, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the audio is not coming through on the right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you think? It's currently number 1 on Billboard's country digital song sales.
So it's not like, yeah, okay. I see what you're saying. Like, because I think when they say topping a Billboard chart, it's like, it's a specific,
It's
right?
what I understand. So it's Billboard's country songs and the digital sales of that, so on Spotify and stuff.
And what does digital country song means for Billboard? It's just like, it is.
No,
AI
I think it's just
generated?
like digital channels. So it's country on digital channels.
Okay. The song sounds like a country song. Like, I'm not a big country song guy. I mean,
Yeah, me neither.
I listen to it. There are a few songs that I can jam to, but it's not like, I don't listen enough to say this is good, it's bad. It's like, it's a country song.
Yeah, same for me. I had to listen to it. There's a lot of interaction on socials on this. A lot of it positive, also a lot of it frustrated by actual artists.
Actual artists are the main ones frustrated. They have come out and voiced their frustration.
And to me, it sounds a little bit, well, if I didn't know it was AI, I probably wouldn't pick it out. But because like it sounds a bit cringy or something. Like it doesn't really feel like a natural voice.
Yeah.
But it currently has 1.8 million Spotify listeners.
Maybe to shortcut a bit the discussion, because the thing that when I read this article, mainly this statement here, and that should infuriate us all. Why should it infuriate us all? Like, because the author here, he talks about how Billboard also doesn't care, kinda, that it's AI generated. This song, they do mention AI generation on, I think, somewhere like Spotify or something, but not on Instagram. So, but
they don't mention it on Billboard. Billboard currently doesn't have separate charts. They don't have separate labels. And I do think, like, if you take the Billboard charts and you're just gonna go through it, you're gonna assume this is authentic music, right?
Yeah.
And that's
true.
Really the case here. Like, because everything is fake, from the instruments to the vocals, right? And I think that is like that feels a bit misleading.
But if that wasn't there, I feel like, I mean, my guess, I don't know the author, but he makes a lot of points here that even if that was very clear on the description, he would still,
I think,
be a critic.
If it would be clearly labeled, I think, like, Billboard AI-generated numbers versus human-generated numbers on Billboard, they should be able to compete with each other, but they should be labeled as such, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they need separate charts, but they do need clear labels.
I'm with you. Yeah. But, like, I think, for example, he mentions here that, I don't remember, I cannot find where, but he says the AI-generated music getting traction discourages artists to produce content. Which I see why. I see the logic in the argument, but I also feel like it's a bit like, I don't know if I fully agree, you know? I think it's like, there are people that are gonna like the AI generated music because they listen to music and it's catchy and it's like whatever. And there are people that listen to it because they want to know that there's someone behind the pen thinking about it and feeling these things and writing it out, right? But I still feel like there is probably people that would be interested in both, right? Like there are songs, like the other thing he mentions, I think it's country song as well. They are a bit more emotional, let's say. Like they do have lyrics that try, and he mentions here that the lyrics are soulless and all these different things. But at the same time, I feel like for a lot of people, if they didn't know it was AI generated, they wouldn't notice, right? And I feel like there's a lot of songs that are also written by actual artists that are also soulless, right? They're not talking about anything and still get very catchy.
Yeah, but I don't think it negates the fact that it might demotivate actual artists. Like an actual artist to make a song, they're probably gonna work on this for 1 or 2 months to get it all perfectly right, and then like your vibe artist is gonna do this in 3 hours, and it's slightly less good. Like I can imagine that this is like with the same time that you spend generating a single song, like this vibe artist is gonna generate like 20 quite okay songs.
Yeah. And I get it. Like you also, I mean, I get the argument of you're incentivizing slop. It's AI slop, which maybe slop is a big word for this, but you're incentivizing noise over quality, right? You're incentivizing people to just push a lot because maybe one thing will resonate with people instead of actually trying to create. And then the scale of things that are actually good and the things that are just noise is going to increase a lot, which is also what you see on YouTube and all the other, like LinkedIn and all these things, right?
Yeah, to me, this will probably like also like it will like raise the bar for what is the minimal quality that you expect, right? Like it will elevate the really good artists, and like it will take out artists that are in the bottom when it comes to quality, because they will not be able to surpass things made by Suno and likes.
Yeah, true. The artists that are actually passionate about music, right? Because I'm also thinking if people just want to be famous and just like maybe those the mediocre artists, let's say, they're also gonna use AI then, right?
Potentially,
Right? So yeah, I think the devil's advocate point is like if people listen and they like it and there's no deception, right? Like it's clear it is AI generated, then do we care?
we'll let the people decide.
We'll let the people decide, yeah. I'm not saying I personally subscribe to that necessarily. I haven't made up my mind yet, but I think that's the devil's advocate, right? And I think people are very opinionated, but that's where I feel like I have a bit of a hard time, to say it's all bad or all good, right? I think reality is that it has changed the
It comes down to
industry.
transparency.
Yeah, that I fully agree. I feel like that I can definitely stand behind. What else? And talking about art, I guess, right? Next up, we have Netflix outlines when productions can use generative AI and what must be cleared before anything hits the screen. Ideation is generally low risk, but final deliverables, digital replicas of talent, personal data, or third-party IP require written approval and enterprise-grade safeguards backed by a handy use case matrix. So this is Netflix guidelines of using Gen AI, right? And
exactly. For basically production teams, right? The teams that are actually making series or movies.
Yeah, because the way I understand as well is like Netflix, they have the streaming platform, but then they actually partner up with a lot of almost independent directors and things like that to produce content for Netflix that becomes like a Netflix content, right? Like a Netflix exclusive content. And these guidelines are for everyone that basically wants to publish anything under the Netflix brand, right?
Exactly.
I guess what I saw here, like just put here the use case matrix. The main concern from them is like a legal thing, right? That's what it looked like here.
Well, it's probably triggered by legal, but like their wording is also like we should not mislead viewers, and we should also have respect for actual performers, to not create digital twins of them, and probably this comes down to the legal risks in this as well, but it's not necessarily worded just from a legal risk point of view. Actually, like going through this, to me, it sounds very sane.
Yeah, I also had that feeling. It's like grounded. It was I don't know. It feels like they're doing the right thing, right? Like
yeah, exactly. Like don't mislead people. Don't use data that you do not own. If you do something, get a written approval. Don't copy based on other material. Don't copy actors based on other material, etc. It makes a lot of sense, I guess.
Yeah. They also say like if you're using stuff for intermediate, right, like mood boards or reference images, like okay, low risk things, of course, that's fine. But as soon as something goes on the final cut, even if it's a detail, like use judgment, escalate, talk to us, right? Like, yeah, it looks. I mean, you look very sensible indeed. Like probably if I spend some time thinking about it, I'll probably come to something close to it, right? Like use your comment, like yeah, don't deceive people and all that. Maybe one, because also for me, I was also can't say I was surprised, but I also thought that it was a bit quote unquote early, right? So it made me wonder as well if there's a lot of already Gen AI content on Netflix today. What do you think?
It's a good question. I don't know. I've never noticed it as such.
Yeah.
And it could be that it's shitty CGI. That is just Gen AI, maybe. I've never clearly noticed it, to be honest. I think one of the bigger guiding principles, like a lot of them, they make sense. Like the 5 different guiding principles. Maybe to zoom in on one of them is that Gen AI should not be used to replace, but also generate new talent performances without consent. And that is a hard stance, like basically like if when we need an actor and be the actual actor, be the voice actor, whatever, like the default should always be use an actual person.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And of course there's a backdoor because you can get written prior consent, etc., etc. But like it's very much it's a conscious decision.
Yeah. It feels like, yeah, again, like it feels like it's the right thing, right? Like you're
Yeah.
not trying to take jobs away. You're not trying to add more to the noise. You're like, don't take shortcuts. That's a bit the thing. Also, what I do imagine that Gen AI is used is to also create, and that's actually what I thought when I looked at it. When I first saw the article, I thought it was going to be about like generating thumbnails or personalized text, for the descriptions or something. But actually, it's really about the actual video, or I guess more like the actual content, right? Like not the marketing around it, right? So
Yeah, exactly. It's actually really about the content. And something that they also like clearly do give green light on is like more the brainstorming part, like ideation. I want to create a mood board. Like this is the type of thing that we're thinking about. Like let's speed up this ideation part.
yeah, and it again, it makes sense, right? It's like if it's really just as a tool to get your brain juices flowing and all these things that are not going to make the final cut. Like if you're using it as a tool, it's okay. If you're using it as a replacement of something, then probably not okay. Or at least talk to someone, right? So yeah, again, and again, the timing as well, the impression I have, and I don't know how much Gen AI is today, that they're not doing this as a reaction to anything. They're really doing this to set the standards from the beginning. So they are really following it up. They are thinking critically of how this could impact the content that they put forward. So it felt like very, very modern approach, right? Like a very forward thinking and well thought out. So they gained points on my book, let's say, Netflix.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. What do we have next?
Paper LLMs Can Get brain rot dials down on the risk that large language models degrade when trained on their own inputs instead of diverse human data. It collects early research and symptoms like blandness, repetition, and drifting facts, framing the problem in plain language for non-specialists and policymakers. So this is a website, we'll link it in the show notes, that basically gives an outline of a paper that they published on Archive.
Yes. Got a lot of traction, this paper. I mean, also because I think it is very newsy, let's say, right? A brain rot. I've heard a lot. Like I heard about brain rot. They define here as it's low effort, endless engagement, bait content that can be dull. That can dull, eroding focus, memory discipline, and social judgment through compulsive online consumption. So brain rot, I heard first with the Italian brain rot, which is Gen AI content, like some animations, and then they just say stuff that makes no sense. And the first time I heard of it was like people like cracking up. But to me, I'm like, yeah, what the fuck? Like this is not funny. This is just dumb. Like it And then you see a lot of videos, usually younger generation, like younger kids or something, not younger like toddlers, but like, I don't know, high schoolers or something, that they memorized the nonsensical words, and they were just like in the same tempo or the same amount of times repeating the same word, and then like making a big deal out of it, right? So I think the idea here is that this erodes your cognitive capacity, right? Your brain. And they actually did a study on this for on LLMs. So they actually had, this is just from X content here, so from what was Twitter before, and they basically rated the tweets, let's say, or the content in general as junk or control, right?
Junk being brain rot content.
Brain rot content. So I think they mentioned like it's and I think that was in one article here. It's like stuff that is mainly for engagement, mainly for like low effort, not something that challenges your brain, basically, right? Something that is simple, straightforward. And they train LLMs with this, or I think they fine-tune LLMs, I want to say. Maybe just going here from one of the articles that cover this. Junk sets included highly popular content engineered to grab attention with minimal information. Clickbait threads, recycled meme commentary, posts positioned to spark outrage, and algorithmically generated articles. So basically just stuff that's just clickbait, basically. And they trained models, or they fine-tune models on this, and they actually saw that the models, the LLMs that had the junk content, they performed worse on basically, like they had the data sets here, like the ARC. I think we covered ARC a while ago, which is the game thing for trying to find the rules based on the outputs of the game. But they also give some examples here, right? They have some questions basically with alternatives. And they saw that the baseline model actually performed better, right? The logic was wrong, or sometimes there was no logic or no plan, and the answer was basically wrong. And they actually saw that even after you do this and you try to mitigate the brain rotting, let's say, with clean data, that still persisted to a large degree. And again, there are some questions on like this mirror also human brains, right? Like in the sense that if you just consume junk, stuff that doesn't challenge your brain, right, to think about it, if it can also have impacts on the biological brain as well. I do think that there needs to be more studies or larger scale studies on this, but I thought it was quite interesting.
Yeah, and also a bit worrisome for future training data, right? Given that the amount of data that is currently flooding the internet, which is quote unquote just brain rot content.
Yeah, indeed. Also,
very much also a bit of a vicious circle, because a lot of these this brain rot content comes from LLMs.
Yeah. I think it's like, I think we talked about it. I don't know if it was on the data topics or the monkey patching, but that some people are saying that AI spoiled its own kind of, right? Like that.
Yeah.
We released the Gen AI, and now so many people use it to write articles or to do this, that now it's being used again to retrain the thing, and it's like this has an impact on the performance and the quality of all these different things, right? One thing that just to like data quality in AI or machine learning, it's not something super new, right? I think it's something that we've seen. I think there was even a data-centric competitions like for machine learning, right? That basically, instead of you giving your own model in the competition, you give a data set that is clean, and then basically that same model is trained on the different data sets to show the importance of data quality. But this also kind of talks about a different level, right? Because traditional data quality classifiers thinks it's fine, but it quietly degrades reasoning because it teaches models to mimic attention rather than understanding. So it's also like another dimension of data quality, right? It's not like the data looks clean, the text does look there, like it does look like the sentences make sense. But when you take a more subjective, a deeper look on the cognitive demand, let's say, for this data, then it has also a big impact, right? So I'm also wondering if for future models, if people will pay more attention to this, right? Like also try to classify what is junk, what's not junk. In a way, it's a bit analogous to what we saw for like traditional machine learning, right? How before it was like just gathering a lot of data and putting a model to train. And then now people are saying, okay, it's not just about getting data. It's about having the right data, having the right features, having the right, like the clean examples, right? You don't want to include everything. And I'm wondering if this is also a similar moment for LLMs, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not just about getting as much data as possible. If we should also spend a bit more time now as well curating the data, seeing what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and see if there is an impact. I think last week, I want to say, we also covered the small playbook, which was like a bit of a playbook on how to train your own LLMs. And they also talk about how even with a relatively small data set sample, you can have a quite good LLM. So, yeah, I don't have first-hand experience to comment on this, but I would be very curious to see the impact of if you have a model trained from scratch on all the data and a model trained from a subset of that, which is still a lot of data, but handpicking the best examples if you have a very big performance.
Yeah, fair point.
Did this surprise you at all, Bart, the data quality thing?
No, to me, it sounds a bit intuitive, right? Like if you have a pre-existing set of knowledge or a pre-existing model, and then you start feeding it bad quality data, that it performance gets worse. Feels pretty intuitive, right? But here, like this article or this paper basically proves that.
Yeah.
But the big challenge is, of course, like this is what is happening in real life at a very large scale, where a large part of the internet is now Gen AI generated. So yeah, big question on what that means long term.
Yes, time will tell. And talking about machine learning models or new LLMs, OpenAI announced GPT-5.1, aiming for a smarter, more conversational ChatGPT, rolling out to paid users first. Two flavors, instant and thinking, promise better instruction following, clear reasoning that adapts to task difficulty, and controls to shape tone so responses feel warmer or more precise. So, new model from OpenAI. You tried this one already.
I've tried it a little bit. I've tried it on the ChatUI, but also through Codex, which is OpenAI's coding assistant. I'm not sure, to be very honest, if it's really like a new model. I think it's a tweaked version of GPT-5, which is a bit quote unquote smarter on understanding when it needs to use the thinking tokens or not. And it's also, it promises to be a bit more smarter, warmer in communication.
Yeah. So I haven't used it as much yet, but from the announcement here, it does. I mean, they mentioned like more the communication, right, to make it warmer
yeah.
and stuff. They also mentioned like a bit quirky, which to me is a bit, it's subjective, right? If people like it or not, or if you want more of this or not. Maybe you just want something that is super direct and super to the point. One thing that they did mention that I thought could be useful is like the instruction following, right?
Yep,
So the
also
example
improves,
is always respond in 6 words is the example. And then you see that for the 5.1 instant, it looks like it sticks more to the instructions. I think that can be very, very useful. I think the thinking as well, but I think it's something that they also did. But for example, clear responses with less jargon and fewer undefined terms, which I think it's okay, right? It's good when you look at it, unless you're someone that is very technical and you understand the jargon, which is more accurate, right? So the vibe I got is also a bit like there are improvements for the general population, but for example, tone is more warmer and more empathetic. I feel like it's a bit subjective, and I don't know. I feel like it's
well, they
I don't
do
feel like I don't
also
know.
mention that with these improvements, that they do have significant improvements both on math and coding evaluations.
Okay.
So there's that.
I feel like that I appreciate, but I like looking at the first post here, they are focusing a lot on the tone and how warm it feels. And I'm not, to me, again, I'm biased, but I don't know if it's a step in the right direction, right? I feel like you're equating more and more these chatbots to people, right? But I don't know, like for me, I still feel like we should look at it as a tool, right? And I think all these changes, it's like you're taking less of a step as this as a tool and more as this is a personal companion that you have, which I think is a bit dangerous as well. Yeah, I feel like if that was the only change, I would be a bit, I don't know, conflicted. They also make at the very end as well that you can change ChatGPT settings for like tone and all these things, so you can make it more. uniquely yours, they call it. So you can make it more professional, more quirky, more nerdy, more, I don't know, something like this. Which I think that can be helpful, but it makes me wonder if ChatGPT is aiming to be more and more like a personal friend than a tool for you, which I think it's, again, dangerous territory. For the more objective things, like you said you used in Codex, did you feel a difference in the coding abilities?
Maybe just the SWE bench, they showed that GPT 5.1 is slightly above GPT-5 levels. That also means that it's more or less the same as Claude Opus 4.1. It's more or less the same as Grok 4 when it comes to coding. It's very comparable.
Which is very good, right? Like those are...
Which is very good. It's apparently also the best ranked in the AIME in high school math. It outperforms all the others. My own experience with Codex is actually quite positive, although it's very limited at this point. Well, with 5.1 and Codex, actually just this morning that I tried it out. I was stuck on a task with Claude Code, and I tried to fix it with Codex, and actually got it in one go.
Oh, okay.
So it's yeah, I'm happily surprised. I think also seeing that you now have GPT 5.1, you have Grok 4, you have Claude Sonnet 4.5, I want to say. You have Kimu that is doing very well, but I'm hopeful that this will also bring the cost of AI assisted coding down, because token cost is still very high for these type of models, especially for the Anthropic ones.
Yeah, true.
So I'm happy to see these improvements.
Like
apparently,
more...
like everybody's able to at least be good at this. Maybe not the best, but at least be very good at this.
Which I think a lot of the times that's enough, right? Yeah, I think costs will go down. I think we're going to cover another article later that talks a bit about this. But I agree. Feels like people are figuring this out more, right? Like coding assistants.
With the OpenAI chat UI, to be honest, I haven't really noticed any big changes. I haven't tried it out extensively either. I do hope that it will. So what I've used to be doing with GPT-5 is that I very quickly switch to thinking, because it does a bit more tool usage, and then it's much better with let's say state-of-the-art news and stuff like this. It really crawls the internet for it. I hope that these things this is become a bit smarter, knows when to use it and when not, and at the same time takes less time than GPT-5 think, because it takes way more time to get, let's say, accurate news data than, for example, Perplexity or Google's AI answer.
And do you think that's because just the tool calling is slower, or do you think it's because it does more tool calls, or it adds a big...
I think it's a combination of those things, yeah.
No,
probably the two.
And you mentioned Perplexity, you mentioned Claude Code, you mentioned Codex, you mentioned ChatGPT. Do you have like a workflow, or do you sometimes try things on different ones, or you try on one, you didn't get what you want, and you go to Perplexity, or how do you think about these things?
Typically, my 80% is that I use Claude Code for coding and OpenAI for all the rest.
Okay, that's the default. But you still deviate a bit if you don't get, if you feel like the quality is not good.
For let's say updates on news and stuff, I tend to use Perplexity just because it's really good at this and very fast, where ChatGPT is very slow.
Okay, interesting. What's next part?
Something that everybody has been talking about. I can't get it out of my LinkedIn feed. Token-oriented object notation, Toon, pitches a compact schema-aware alternative to JSON for LLM prompts. With a V1 release on November 10th and a TypeScript SDK, Toon targets uniform arrays for major token savings while keeping lossless structure, positioning it as a pragmatic bridge between JSON and model-friendly text.
Do you feel like this is bike shedding, or like for, I don't know, we are all bike shedding as a community?
Explain the context of bike shedding.
So bike shedding, like I read it somewhere that explained it's basically if you're in a meeting and you have many topics, and then all the topics are super important, and then you have one, or where should you put the bike sheds in your office? And then it's a I don't know if I should call it a phenomenon, but basically it's like in the meeting you spend most of the time talking about the bike shed, where you should put it, because it's something that everyone has an opinion. it affects everyone, but it's like it's really it's not that
Trivial,
relevant, right? Yeah,
right?
it's trivial, right? Like the other things are way more important, but you spend so much more time discussing this because everyone has an opinion. It affects everyone. And I'm saying this here because it's like, yeah, everyone can talk about token usage. It's very objective. Everyone can, I don't know, it's like something that everyone can understand because it's very simple. But like, is it really is it that big of a deal? So
Fair point.
what do you think, Bart?
I think it's a good analogy, but maybe explain to us for the people that haven't seen it yet what this what.
So basically, when you have like, I don't know, if you're describing information, right? You have different formats. You have like JSON, you have YAML.
Like you have a data object, right? Like
Exactly.
multiple rows of an array of data, whatever.
Exactly. And
Something data.
Yeah. And then the main criticism, like JSON, I think it's what most LLMs were using, or I don't know. Maybe it started like this. I don't know, but it's very standard.
Verbose, right? Like you need a lot of
verbose
characters and
exactly a lot of like new lines, quotes, this and that, and that adds costs, right? I mean, we talked about tool calling using natural language instead of a JSON schema, right? That also reduced the number of tokens. And there's YAML, which is more like of a, I'm showing on the screen for people that are following the video, by the way. YAML, it feels a bit more human readable, something that kind of more like markdown-y kind of thing. A little less tokens. And Toon is basically a new format that it's a mix between, kind of a mix between the two, right? So you have like, the example they have here is like hikes 3. So I guess it's 3 elements. And then you have brackets, and then you have kind of like the headers of that table, kind of, right? So you have ID, name, distance kilometer, elevation gain, companion, and was sunny. And then after that, you have a tab, and then you have the values as a comma separated list, and that's it. There is less tokens. I guess that's a bit. So it's typically 30 to 60% fewer tokens. I'm wondering if this is as flexible, because in JSON you can have like nested objects, right? You can have like a thing inside of a thing inside of a thing. I'm not sure how Toon would work. I'm not sure how different this is from like just a CSV, to be very honest. I guess I don't know. Maybe it is just the nested. I don't know. But it's a new format, right? And I think I think it's something that could be relevant. I think it's something that I would like to know. I think the thing for me that is a bit surprising is how much noise, or how this exploded, you know. I think it's something like, oh yeah, okay, that's cool. But I feel like a lot of people talking about this, a lot of LinkedIn posts, a lot of people saying why this is the future or this is better. And
I think it's good to think about like how can you convey the same information with less tokens. I think that's a good thing that these experiments are going on. I think it's probably hard to get like one-on-one performance on this versus something like JSON or YAML, just because like there's very little of this in the training data. Like how do you need to interpret this? What I don't like myself about this is that you have this length counter. So if you go down a bit to the example that you were showing, you have this hikes, like 3 hikes there. But in order to add a 4th hike, you also need to update the counter. So like that's a bit counterintuitive or something. Yeah, but it's good to see. It's good to see these explorations. I think that's a valid thing to find a way to spend less tokens. But indeed, it's very interesting how this went absurdly viral.
yeah. And I think like I'm looking here the efficiency ranking per 1,000 tokens, and it's like Tone is the first, of course, but then like JSON compact is the second. So it's like, and I guess JSON compact is just removing the new lines, just, you know, like, and you have like 26.9 and 22.9. So I don't know, like it also feels, I mean, it is good. It's
And
good that
everybody
people
knows
thinking
JSON,
about
right?
this. Huh?
And everybody knows JSON.
And everybody knows JSON, right? And now you're starting to have all these like Python package, TypeScript packages, because now you want to be able to parse these things and convert from JSON to Toon. And I don't know, like it's, again, I think people should still work on this. I think it's good, but I also think the reason why this is gaining so much attention is because it's simple, everyone can understand, everyone's going to have an opinion on, like the whole YAML versus JSON debate was already something, right? So it feels a bit like bike shedding. But again, there's value, right? That's the I want to get to. I like it, but I also heard so much about this that I was like, yeah. Would you use this?
Maybe if a specific use case, not at the moment.
And do you think this is only for, I mean, it started for LLMs, but do you see a future of this outside LLMs? Like people just using tone format just because it's the new standard?
Well, if it's can encapsulate everything that a JSON today does, why not, right? I would maybe argue that it's less easy to maintain, a bit like what I was explaining, right? If the discounter, if I'm not sure if it's possible to enforce a schema because you need a lot of utility functions for that again. Like, I don't think it will quickly become a new standard, but maybe for LLMs it does. And I can think of use cases where people are building solutions that are extremely LLM heavy and that are sending a lot of JSONs back and throw.
True.
That's where like a 5% decrease in tokens results in a big decrease in cost, right?
Yeah, that's true. I don't know if I find it so readable though, compared to like YAML or JSON even, right? So I think that's the only thing you lose, but I agree. I'm also curious here that the workflow they propose is that you have JSON and then you encode the JSON into tone and then that you pass it into the LLM. So it's like it does look a bit like it's a bit of an intermediate layer, right? Like people shouldn't really worry about it, but yeah. What else do we have? Is it my turn?
I think so, yeah.
So we have 11 Labs introduce Scribe v2 Realtime, a streaming speech-to-text model built for agents, meetings, and live captions. It promises sub 150 millisecond latency, static language detection, and enterprise options, claiming 93.5% accuracy across 30 languages with API access and direct integration into 11 Labs agents. So speech-to-text model, this is I'm not sure what state-of-the-art means for speech-to-text, but very, very low latency, right? And I think they mentioned here that they use cases especially for voice agents, right? Today, what do you use today, Bart, for speech-to-text?
I don't do a lot of speech-to-text, to be honest. I use it a little bit like the voice mode in ChatGPT. I actually tried recently... forgot the name, but basically an OS X client that can help you do speech to text, but the performance wasn't great. So I don't actually use it. So yeah.
This is not an open model, right? So it's not like, because I think, first thing I think when I think of speech to text, I think of Whisper.
Exactly.
Right?
I think that's what everybody defaults to these days.
Yeah, I think so too.
And we actually use it for the podcast to some extent.
To some extent, yeah. You want to explain how?
Oh, we generate transcripts basically using Whisper. And then those transcripts we use to find interesting slices and to generate shorts.
Yeah, indeed. You actually run Whisper locally, so actually it's the Whisper CPP, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Which is quote unquote good enough, I feel, no?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't generate a newsletter from it, right? But
yeah,
it's good enough for an LLM to pick it up and understand enough context to propose good short locations.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, latency for Whisper CPP is actually quite okay, I feel. Well, again, haven't used as much, right? But the little experience I have is that it looked okay. So I guess the main difference between such models like this is that maybe it's even more instant and the accuracy is much higher, right?
Exactly.
One thing that I'm always curious, especially since moving to Belgium, is the different languages part, right? How well does it work with all the different languages? And also how well does it work if you switch languages in the middle, which is not worldwide, maybe is not that common, but I feel like there are multilingual countries that this does happen, right? If you're in a meeting.
Yeah, true. But even like if you say I've like this voice assistant by phone, and if you're in Belgium, there are like there's like France, there's Flemish people calling in, there may be even German-speaking people calling in, and then you have international people speaking English calling in, and like it helps if you have just one model that can respond to everything to avoid having to detect, right?
Yeah, no, for sure, fully agree.
So there are definitely some use case for that.
But I'm also wondering, like, what if someone starts in, I don't know. I mean, this happens with me, yeah. So I'm learning Dutch, I'm learning Flemish, and I start, and maybe I start to, first, my accent is probably horrible, right? So I wonder how good these models are. But the other thing, sometimes I switch from like Dutch to English because I'm in the conversation, and at one point I say, okay, do you just speak English because it's just easier to carry on like this, right? And I wonder if the model can also switch like that, if it's good, like mid conversation to just switch languages. Never tested, but I've
We
been
should check it
curious
out.
about it. Yeah, right. We should give it a try, see how it goes. Do you know, maybe last thing, like on 11 Labs, have you used a lot of 11 Labs? The agents and all these different things, or no?
The agent's not, because they released only a few months ago, right? The agent platform.
I think so.
But I did use a lot of text-to-speech. I think it's still the strongest player in the field. They've also been around more or less from the beginning, and they're just very good. Also, when
Yeah.
I talk to founders that are active in this space, they all use 11 Labs.
Yeah, they've been there for quite a long time as well, right? Yeah. Cool. What else? What do we have?
ByteDance's Volcano engine launched a low-cost coding agent priced at 1.30 USD for the first month, escalating China's AI coding price war. The Duabao seed code model later costs 40 yuan monthly, which is roughly 5 USD, and touts SWE bench verified results on par with other leading systems.
So very, very cheap, huh? Like,
yeah, if we ignore the first month, which is very cheap, but then going further, it's $5 a month, which outperforms, I want to say, Western providers,
think
more or
so.
less. Maybe I'm skipping here or there one. But yeah, I haven't really dived into what are quotas or stuff like this. How good is it today? But it's good to see these price wars going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think ByteDance, I don't remember which models I saw, but I remember them releasing models that we did discuss, I want to say, here on the pod. So
I
like
think
good models.
it was an image model.
Maybe it was image model indeed. There's a Doubao seed code. I
It's actually the
don't
first time I
know.
hear about it.
Yeah,
Be
this
honest.
model, right?
Yeah.
I guess this is an open source model. I guess. I think so.
I think so as well. Yeah, I think so as well. I think that's an open weights model.
Open weights indeed. And yeah, like here in the article, they talk about like the performance on the benchmarks, right? Which looks good. What I thought was also interesting is that they mentioned that this was launched after, where is it? I think it was launched after Anthropic's Claude Code was banned for Chinese companies. So it was a bit of a reaction to that, right? So yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
6 days after ByteDance cut off access to Anthropic's Claude model following American firms' service restructuring affecting Chinese-owned entities worldwide. So basically, there's some geopolitics involved with this, right? Like basically, Anthropic said. Yeah, so here also says the launch comes after Anthropic, US AI startup, updated its service restrictions in September to block access by subsidiaries of Chinese firms. The latest sign of growing polarization in the global AI landscape. So basically, Anthropic said you cannot use these models anymore, and then ByteDance said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to release my own, and I'm going to make it super cheap. So there's a big market as well for them, I guess. Like if you just think of Chinese companies that cannot use this, there's going to be a huge market there. I think there's going to be more incentives for the Chinese companies to release these coding models, but they are very cheap. So I think I also feel, I don't know, I'm not sure if I feel like they poke the bear a bit, right? Like by, like by making these sanctions, or like by restricting the use by this, now they have a lot more competition.
Well, it has not been a smart decision. I think this shows for software solutions, but they're doing the same thing on chips and hardware.
Exactly.
And like the only reaction that comes from China is to start building their own capabilities, and not only that, exporting their own capabilities to the rest of the world.
Yeah, and they look like they're good at it as well, right? It's not like they come up with good models. They come up with, like manufacturing wise, I think they're also very, very strong. And I think maybe not to get too much the politics, right? But it feels like the US hasn't been the most reliable partner, like with tariffs and all these things, right? So I think there's another argument to be open to deal with all these things, right? So I'm wondering as well, like if this hurts American companies in the long run. Like
I think it does.
I
I don't
guess
think there's a question there.
I think it
I
does.
think it does.
But how much, right? Like what's the impact? I think is it as big as I'm thinking right now, or yeah?
I think it's potentially very big. And we discussed a little bit on the previous episode. Like if you ignore that this is a very affordable coding agent, just also the reality that China is releasing a lot of open weight models into the global market that are more or less on par with today are the leading US models. It will very much like heighten the competition on this. It will also very much devalue these premium US companies like Anthropic, like OpenAI, if they don't just compete on we have the best models, which they today maybe can still argue, but it's the last year has shown us how close these open source models have come, like Qwen, like KBK, like DeepSeek. It's not far off, like add another year to that, and I would be surprised if they still have a very big lead. These OpenAIs and Anthropics of the world, and
Yeah,
then the economic reality sets in a bit, because if they don't, they are overvalued. That's then the other question: like, are they overvalued today? If there's much more competition, it's more likely that they're overvalued. Then it also reflects badly on the US economy, because like the S&P 500, like all the growth in that this year just came from AI companies.
yeah, or
So
like related, like Nvidia
long
or
term, it
something,
potentially
right?
has a very big impact on their economy.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. And again, I think OpenAI, they are not. I'm not sure if they're cash flow positive by now. I think they have a lot of revenue, but they also have a lot of costs, right? And because I think we talked a bit about the different strategies between Anthropic and OpenAI. So I feel like they were projecting
They're investing
the
very heavily.
yeah, indeed. So yeah, the more you delay these things, the more these things happen. And again, not just models, right? You also mentioned the GPUs, right? That Nvidia is also not. I think they're banning Nvidia to power these things. So China is also building their own chips, and yeah, I really feel like again they poked the bear. You know, they woke up the bear. It was a bit. That's the vibe that I get. Yeah. All right, and last but not least, we have the tidbits.
GitHub's Octoverse interview explores how AI tools are reshaping language choices and developer workflows, with TypeScript rising alongside Python's AI strengths. In conversation with GitHub Next, Eden Gazit, the piece frames an AI feedback loop where title languages help agents refactor reliably across tasks.
So this is from a GitHub event, huh? GitHub Next, and he kind of broke
and
it down a bit.
they basically did some interviews, actually survey among developers. They also use GitHub data. And what they see is that TypeScript basically overtook JavaScript and Python on GitHub in 2025. And they grew 66% year over year, which is crazy.
I think then before maybe the most popular language was JavaScript. I think
JavaScript or Python, to be honest, I don't know. I think Python actually, but I'm not 100% sure. Actually, we actually discussed this last year as well when it came out. It's a yearly analysis they do. The interesting thing is that there is a bit of this AI feedback loop. Because TypeScript, because it is typed, it gives a lot of feedback to an AI model to see like the code that I generated, is it valid code or not? And I think that part, plus also TypeScript is used a lot in front-end and application design, which also has extremely grown with tools like Lovable, with Bolt, with all these vibe coding tools that have sprung up in the last year or two. So we've seen this, like these tools that focus on easily like rapid front-end application development, plus TypeScript being the logical choice there because LLMs get easy feedback. Like this huge surge basically in the TypeScript language, and also like TypeScript becoming a de facto standard again for developers.
yeah, maybe being a bit devil's advocate, no? Like Python, you could have you could the static type-ins, right? You could check them. Is it much different from TypeScript? Like the actual type system, I mean.
something that you can debate. I think TypeScript is stricter, but it's also much more intuitive to use TypeScript in the front end than it is to use Python.
Yeah, but that I agree. Because the main argument here is TypeScript over Python because of the type system, but like Python, you could enforce quote unquote a type system, right?
You could. So in TypeScript, what happens when there is something incorrectly typed or something, you get like a warning that you need to explicitly fix or ignore before you can continue. And I think that's way more strictness than in Python, right? Because by Python you could do that, but you need to set it up yourself to be so strict, and like there's need to be more opinionated, I think, with Python to have the same level of strictness.
Yeah, I guess I'm also wondering if I mean, and also this is for LLMs, right? So that's the argument here is LLMs benefit from the strictness, right? So I guess if you want to do the same thing for Python and LLMs, you need to set up some hooks, right? I think Claude Code, they actually have hooks that to say every time you write some code, run MyPy, or there's Ty, which is the I think the attempt from Astro, right? Maybe it's also slower because I know MyPy is also can be a bit slow compared to TypeScript. So like there's more scaffolding, but I guess for me, I'm thinking like, should I write more Python? I don't write a lot of TypeScript, but if it's such a big plus, should I also go through the trouble of doing all these things? I think that's the question that I had for myself, right?
But I think the maybe also what changed a little bit is that where Python was being used a lot for machine learning purposes or training models, etc., is that now of these original users, like 80% today just calls an API. And you can debate whether or not you even need to use something like Python for that, and it's just as easy as TypeScript. And then it becomes also like easy to unify your whole stack because your front end uses TypeScript. Like, well, why not your back end, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good. I was also thinking of that. People maybe are using more TypeScript because people are building more applications. They need a front end, right? And usually that's like TypeScript. I mean, not usually, but like you can do this with Python, I guess. But it's not, the ecosystem is not there. It doesn't feel the language was made for this, right? The Python is more for data analysis and all these things. They also mentioned here Python, like Python is the dominant language for machine learning. So why would I choose an already whatever? Like there's an ecosystem, right? But to me, that's the reason why TypeScript's more used, because people, now that there's AI, they're building their own applications. And then because you want to have something that has a nice ecosystem with front end, then you go for TypeScript, but not necessarily the types, right? The types is a bit of a, I mean, then it's maybe the types come in when you say JavaScript versus TypeScript.
Yeah, I think it's very much a combination of things, yeah. Because the types do give much more feedback to the LLM, right?
Yeah.
It improves the performance.
Yeah, but I guess for me, it's just like felt that the comparison between TypeScript and Python, which is what they are comparing a bit, is a bit misleading because
I think
there's
that's
a bigger
something that
context.
a Python developer would say, yeah.
But I just think it's like there's a broader context to that, right? I think the ecosystem maybe plays a bigger role than the fact that one is typed and the other one is not typed. Even though Python, you can be strict about types if you set up some extra scaffolding.
Yeah, true.
That was a bit maybe my reaction to this. But I do agree with what you said. I do think that like if you have a simple web app, right, and you don't need a backend, maybe you can just call things from there. You just use TypeScript. If you're already learning languages, you're already doing stuff in TypeScript, you have your cursor rules, your Claude MT file, whatever, set up for TypeScript. You already have your preferred stack. Maybe you can even use it on the backend as well. I do think all these things make sense, right? And I do think that if you compare TypeScript with JavaScript, then I think it's a better comparison saying TypeScript wins because the type system add some guarantees that JavaScript doesn't, right? I think, or like checks or feedback, right, to the model. I think all these things make a lot of sense for sure. One thing that I thought it was interesting is that they mentioned the surprise winners of the AI area, the duct tape languages, and I think they talking really about Bash, right? So Bash is like the language that runs in your terminal, kinda, right? Like so you can actually have scripts that you can execute.
Shell script, basically.
Exactly. And a lot of people call this the duct tape languages because it's kind of like I mean, again, maybe I'm butchering this, so feel free to jump in and correct me, but it's like a lot of the stuff you run on the terminal. So you can have a bash script that basically execute shell commands. And it becomes a bit the duct tape because that's the common platform, let's say, for all the different languages, the system stuff, most of the stuff you can do in your terminal. So it becomes a bit that. So there's a lot of like bash scripts that developers have come to use quite a bit. But people don't, and this is what they are saying here, right? People don't really like writing bash, but it has become a very easy way for LLMs as well to interact with different things in your system, right? Because it kind of goes in your terminal level, your shell level. And now because LLMs are taking care of this, even though people don't enjoy it, people are using it more.
Yeah, I can. I do the same thing. To me, shell scripts, like I used before the whole AI era, I also wrote shell scripts, but way less, because it's something that you do every now and then. And like every time you do it, you need to look up the syntax, etc., etc.
It never feels like
not
it's
that
the thing you
intuitive.
wanna
Like
do.
it takes more effort, and like with an LM, it's like one time you blink and it's there, right?
Yeah.
So it's become very easy to do these things with LM.
Yeah, I feel like with Bash as well, it's never something that people want to do. It's almost like you have to do it, but it's like, it's not, when you sit on a project and you're like, okay, I want to do this. I feel like it's very rare when people say, I want to do this in Bash. Like I'm excited about setting up this Bash script to automate this. I think usually it's more like, you want to do this, okay, now let's write a quick Bash script to do this and this and this because it's easier. And I think also what I noticed from my experience with LLMs is that LLMs also are very eager to write Bash scripts.
Interesting.
Yeah, I feel like a few times it actually wrote a few Bash scripts for me, even though I didn't say like write Bash or anything like that. It just kind of said, "Oh yeah, let me write a quick script for you to test this," and then you would just do it.
Okay. Interesting.
It was a good use case for Bash, but still, it was also something I noticed. % year-over-year growth, quite a bit.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. Yeah, I think maybe not much else. Maybe the last thing that maybe it's a bit controversial. I don't know, but the next horizon where languages stops being a constraint. Oh, he says again here, WebAssembly is changing the rules. If any language can target WASM and run everywhere, that removes the key consideration when picking your stack. And I think he says also picking your stack because he also said that people prefer to programming languages where there's a good AI support. I also heard that argument for frameworks. So for example, people using pandas because there's a lot of like LMs are good at pandas and not good at polars. But then he's saying like, okay, if you combine AI with WebAssembly, so maybe what is WebAssembly, Bart, for people that don't know what it is?
Question, Marilla. How can we summarize that? Okay, I'll try something. Yeah?
I can also try, but I feel like your explanation would probably be better than mine.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So WebAssembly itself is basically like sort of an instruction format for a virtual machine, and that is like designed to be very portable. Like you can run it in your browser, you can run it anywhere, right? Compiling to WASM, like using WASM as a target, basically means like from wherever you write, you can generate a set of binary instructions for WASM so that it basically just shows whatever you built, even though it's not necessarily by the original interpreter or execution runtime of your code. So you can write Rust and you can compile to WebAssembly as a target. You can write Python and you can run it in a WebAssembly context. Not sure if that completely explains what I'm doing, and there are some complexities as well. Like there are actually compiled languages, there are interpreted languages for which you have the interpreter in WASM and you're still executing the script.
And Python is compiled, right? Like it compiles to bytecode, and the bytecode gets interpreted, right? So I think maybe, I guess, if you write Python compiled to WebAssembly, maybe that's how it works. I'm not too sure. Maybe the parallel I draw with assembly and WebAssembly is that assembly is like the machine code, right? It's very, very, very low level, like the ones and zeros in WebAssembly. I think a lot of like what runs on your browser, kinda, right? And maybe it's more lightweight. One thing that I was surprised to hear is that I think fonts have a WebAssembly thingy. So you can actually execute. That's why there was the Llama TTF. So it's a font that actually has a model built in. So it was like a big file that loaded the weights, and it had a WebAssembly thing to run the inference there. What he's saying here, I guess, is like WebAssembly is becoming more popular. I actually heard podcasts of people saying that WebAssembly, and again, this is maybe a bit over my head, but like you don't have to, well, not that you don't have to, but you have containers, right? Which is a bit to make sure your code run in different environments. And WebAssembly also plays a role there, right? That you can have a WebAssembly target and then you can run in many different targets, right? Because you can run on the browser, you can run on different machines and all these different things. And I guess what he's saying here is that right now, today, we're still looking at languages because we're looking at support and we're looking at the ecosystem. But more and more as WebAssembly becomes a thing, this is going to be less relevant.
Yeah, just to give you so from the moment that you can compile to WebAssembly, you can basically run anywhere, right? Because WebAssembly like provides its own virtual machine. If you do not have WebAssembly and you say like, for me, it's very important to be able to use my, let's say, CLI in both Windows, in Linux, in OS X, then probably you're gonna say, maybe I need to use something like Go because it's very easy to compile to and not go the Python route, for example, right? And WebAssembly like a bit takes this whole consideration away.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, I mean, here what it says in the end as well, like I said, runs on the code, edge, cloud, local sandbox. You have a WASM target, and then you can just run everywhere. Do you see a future where this is the case? Like AI plus WebAssembly, then you just tell them to write something, and then you don't really even care what's in between. It's almost like a natural language programming.
I don't think it's people's main concern at the moment. Portability. I think for specific use cases, portability is very important. I think for the 80%, it's not.
True. I think I've heard about WebAssembly before, like even in Python. I've been curious about it. I've seen projects. I saw it in the FOSDEM actually last year, or this year rather. And it was a project that was about, basically had Docker files, but it would compile to WebAssembly. So, but it was still the same syntax as a Docker file, right? And I actually was very curious about it. I even thought like, oh, maybe I should try to do a little project about this, to learn a bit more about WebAssembly. But I actually never had to. There was actually no need, right? Which I think speaks to what you're saying. Most of the times, for most developers, you don't need to worry about this. But I still think it's cool. Like it's a cool technology. Yeah? Like I think it's something cool that exists, and I think can have an impact in the future. But I don't know how close in the future or how far away. And I think that's it for the main topics, let's say. But we do have tidbits. How do you want to go about them?
Maybe we can just like, I'll go over the titles. We will do them one by one.
Sounds good.
And we will add the articles in the newsletter, which you can sign up for at newsletter.monkeypatching.io. So we have Jan LeCun, Meta's chief AI scientist, who is planning to leave Meta to build his own startup. What else, Merlo?
Maybe just quickly on here, I thought this can be interesting. I don't know if it was Jan LeCun that he said that, well, he has been a bit critical about LLMs. That's one. And the second thing is that Meta has been changing a bit how they're approaching the research, right, with open sourcing and all these things. So I think those two things make it, I don't know, interesting piece of news, right? And I think Jan LeCun is very, very big in the AI and machine learning, even before LLMs, right? Like very, very one of the godfathers of AI. Up next is the Morgan Freeman says his lawyers are quote unquote very busy cracking down unauthorized use of his voice. Or voice cloning, I guess, the legal stuff. Morgan Freeman, very iconic.
This is an uphill battle that he's trying to. His voice is so iconic, like everybody wants to use it just for novelty's sake, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And like everybody like reading this headline of the article you're showing, like can also read this in their mind, like in Morgan Freeman's voice.
Yeah. Everyone wants to have their voicemail in the Morgan Freeman voice, right? It's, I mean, maybe he has a lot of money that he just kind of keeps some lawyers busy, just like try to do something, right? But yeah. What's next?
ClickHouse welcomes LibreChat, introducing the open source agentic data stack. So they acquired LibreChat, which is like your open source version of ChatGPT, and they're trying to build a full agentic data stack.
So LibreChat is like the open source what?
An open source ChatGPT clone, to use derogative terms.
Okay. Do they have plans with this, or do you know?
Well, they really want to incorporate it and to what I think they're calling it their agentic data stack is that there really is a chat interface to their ClickHouse instance.
To ClickHouse. Okay. And ClickHouse is like a data platform, I guess. I'm not sure if how.
Yes, it provides basically a fast way to store a lot of data and to query it quickly. Very fast analytical database.
And
that
it is
grew
open
a
source.
lot in the last 3 years.
I heard really nice things about ClickHouse.
Yeah, people are very, very positive about this. Yeah.
Are they open source or no?
They are open source. They definitely started open source. I'm not sure if all functionalities is still open source, but because they do have a managed platform and enterprise license, etc.
Feels like they're cooking something, huh? Like feels like could be interesting. Definitely to keep an eye out. Up next, we have introducing iPhone Pocket, a beautiful way to wear and carry iPhone. This is from Apple. No, it's an Apple product.
It's an Apple product together with a designer, Issei Miyake.
Okay, and it's
basically a sock.
Yeah,
a sock with a string on it, where that you can put your iPhone in. Theoretically, I could put any type of phone in or your keys, and it costs $230 USD. So are you going for the sock, Marilo?
This sock?
That sock, yeah. You can put your phone in it.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like I could probably make something, right? I just take like like those football socks, and then you just like cut, and then you sew, and then boom, that's it. And I'll sell it for like, I don't know, 70 euros.
Yeah,
way cheaper.
The Brazilian version.
Exactly. Gambiarra version. How many of those have you bought already?
Like
how many
5
colors? 5. Yeah, I mean, gotta get them now while it's cheap, huh? Otherwise.
Exactly.
And actually, like, there's only a few places you can buy, right? The promo pictures, I think it's so funny. It's like they have a whole person, and then it's just like the spotlight on
the arm.
So yeah, exactly. You see, like, it's just so, I don't know, so strange. You can attach it to your bag as well.
Yeah, it's really multifunctional.
So many functions, so many functionalities. Wow. It's crazy. Wow. And you can buy it in. You can only buy in a few places, I guess. Hong Kong, Tokyo, Shanghai, Paris, Seoul, Singapore, Milan, London, New York, and Taipei.
Well, take a ticket to Milan and go and get the pocket.
Guess. Not Paris. It is closer.
I think for something like this, haute couture, you need to go to Milan.
You need to go to Milan, exactly. And then you're gonna, yeah, it's true. Yeah. I wonder what's the board, they're discussing like, we need to release some things. Like, maybe we should do a iPhone Pocket, iPhone sock, And then it's like, yeah, but we should get like a designer. Also, like, to me, it's also, I mean, okay, I don't know fashion, huh? But to me, it's a bit weird that there's a whole designer thing, but like, it's just a one color sock. Like, there's no design. It's just a color. Like, maybe the whole thing is the design, right? But it's like,
the whole thing is the design, Marilla.
I don't know. It feels a bit bland still,
It's 8 different colors you can get it in. I mean, that ain't nothing, right?
That ain't nothing. That is true. That's true. I'm just hating for no reason. What is the last tidbit that we have, Bart?
Yes, so it's a bit of an update on the Nexperia case. We discussed this, I want to say, a month ago or something, and people are asking us on an update. So what is this? What is Nexperia? Nexperia is basically a company that is China owned, but present in the Netherlands. It's a subsidiary from a larger Chinese corporation. But roughly a month ago, the Netherlands minister, they invoked the Goods Availability Act, and citing serious governance shortcomings and risk to chip availability. And what is called an enterprise chamber in the Netherlands, they suspended the current CEO and they imposed interim government measures. A lot of discussions came from that. A big Chinese response where they basically said that China was not gonna export these chips anymore because basically these Nexperia products were shipped to China to finalize. And they kind of threatened and also for a very short term applied a ban on export, which would basically put the whole European car manufacturing sector at risk. And after some US-China talks, this was basically put on hold, the export ban. But the Goods
US-China.
Availability Act is still in progress on Xperia.
And it was the US-China talk, but like the...
Yes, exactly. Because the US had played some role in this, although it's not clear exactly to what extent, but the US basically said that the parent company of Nexperia, which is called WingTech, it was added to their blacklist of the US entity blacklist, which they do not buy from, basically. And then they said that there's also an affiliates 50% rule where you pay a lot of sanctions, basically, and Nexperia is an affiliate of that, meaning that everybody globally was trying to understand what does it impact if we are buying from an affiliate or subsidiary from a blacklisted company by the US. And there is some rumor that this was also part of the rationale of the Dutch minister, but it's not really transparent on that.
I see. But it's more like, it's not like the US influenced the Netherlands to take control of this.
Not directly, that's what I understand, but maybe indirectly through this.
Maybe like the minister or someone in the government saw this and they're like, we should look into it. And they had this and they called this law that for the first time, something like that. And
the Dutch government basically says that the Goods Availability Act will stay until supply stabilizes again, which then to me brings in the question, why was it there in the beginning, right? Because the supply is destabilized because this was brought into practice. So yeah, it's still not, to me, very transparent on why the Dutch government did this.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It's very vague, there's governance shortcomings, there's a fear of not having chips available in the Netherlands or in Europe, but it's all very vague and it's not really well argumented, or at least not publicly.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask, because indeed doesn't bring answers.
No, it doesn't bring answers. No, there is something that happened recently that also I think want to say last week that brought a bit this same feeling and people reacting why should we not have this same act come into play now? Is that when Kyndryl, which is a large US information technology firm, they provide infrastructure. They acquired Solvinity. And Solvinity is a large Dutch infrastructure firm that does a lot of service and basically cloud provisioning for major public sector contractors like Municipality of Antwerp, police workloads they have. So it's they have a big player for as a partner for the Dutch government, and you had the same reactions here from the public, this brings very much sovereignty questions into play. Why does the Dutch government now not take the same action as what they did with Nexperia? Because you could argue that this is the work that Solvinity does is very strategic to the continued functioning of the Dutch government, because they power a lot of the infrastructure that is needed. But it's not being done. Also, the argument here is also different in the sense it's not the act that they used for Nexperia. The Goods Availability Act is very specific on availability of goods here, while this Kyndryl thing does not necessarily play around tangible goods. It provides infrastructure services and sovereignty. And it does raise a lot of questions on sovereignty, but apparently this same act could not be applied here for that reason.
But they did have an answer why they couldn't apply the same act because of the...
Yeah, it's just because of the circumstances. I think the question why this was allowed to go through still is...
Yeah, I see. And Kyndryl, you said it's an American company. I feel like the conspiracy theorists and the conspiracy theorist in me is wondering if one is because one is Chinese, the other one is American, right?
Let's see.
I don't want to speculate or add more fire or add more gasoline to the fire, but
Well, I think for Optimus, the problem with an Xperia case is that it's very intransparent on what the actual arguments are, right? Like if the arguments were like we see less and less and less of these chips that are being produced by an Xperia in the Netherlands actually being distributed in Europe, and instead moving to China. That is a very concrete thing. That's probably not what you're gonna see with Solvinity, because Solvinity lives in the Netherlands and provides services to the Netherlands. It's within all their incentive to provide more services because they will become more profitable. But the problem with an Xperia case is that there's not really any clear, transparent argumentation on this.
Which is sketchy, right? Like if people cannot articulate clearly, why? What are you holding back? Like there's a reason, right? Like either you're not doing something 100% correct, quote unquote, or maybe there's some other reason. But I feel like that's where the discomfort grows, right? Like
it's probably is also like it's still relatively new. Like it's the first time that they're applying this act. It's also still relatively young in the sense that like it was a month ago. I can imagine like this is still going through the whole legal machination before they're allowed to talk about these arguments transparently.
That is true, and I hope that is the case, and I hope there was I hope that the world is right. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Like
let's assume that.
Let's assume. All right. Thanks, by the way, for whoever reacted and asked for updates. If there's any topics you would like us to cover, feel free to reach out to us on YouTube, on TikTok. We are on Instagram as well.
Since a week.
Right, Bart? Since a week. Also, feel free to reach out via email or anything. So if there's anything you'd like us to cover or give an update, please do. We just kind of went faster on the last topics, on the tidbits, but we will send them on the newsletter as well. So if you haven't signed up, newsletter.monkeypatching.io. And yeah, I think that's it for today, Bart. Anything else? Any final words?
That's it. Thank you all for listening.
Thanks, everyone. Ciao.
Ciao.